In Donald Trump, we got a guy who could not shut up. For his own good, he would just tweet everything. And you know what? A lot of people really liked that about him, that he would just say it. Probably the most notable moment, in my opinion, one of his best tweets ever, was when Elizabeth Warren was trying to be like AOC and she's live streaming herself. And it's just really cringe. And she's like, I'm going to go get me a beer. And you're like, dude, we know you're not cool. Don't get a beer. And she's drinking it. And her husband walks over and puts his arm around her and like smacks her on the butt. And it was like a weird political moment, super cringe for a presidential candidate. And then she said, I'm glad you're here, to her husband. Then Trump tweets out, what do you mean you're glad he's there? He lives there. He's supposed to be there. And for the president of the United States to tweet something like that is just absolutely hilarious. The man has no filter. He blurts out, we're in Syria. It's great. We're taking the oil. It's like, wow, we're selling weapons to Saudi Arabia. Oh, geez. Talk about a president with no filter. Well, Joe Biden doesn't need a filter because Joe Biden sometimes can't form complete sentences. But let me tell you about how weird things are right now. You see, we have the inverse with Joe Biden. Whereas Donald Trump was uncontrollable and would say all this crazy stuff, Joe Biden is completely controlled. We talked about this yesterday in the Timcast IRL podcast, but it's so significant. I think I absolutely have to do a segment on it because there's more to this than just Joe Biden's live feed being cut off. That's the story. Joe Biden was doing a live session talking to Democrat caucus members, and he says, I'll take questions, right? And then they turned his camera off, and then they ended the stream. I ask you this. Who has the authority to shut off a presidential address to members of Congress? Now, it wasn't a State of the Union. It wasn't a statement to the people of America or a joint session of Congress. It was Joe Biden talking to members of Congress, and someone turned his camera off. We had Jack Murphy on the podcast, and he was like Manchurian Candidate, like half in jest. Yeah, who's really running this? Because it's not Joe Biden. I'm sorry. Yeah, he's the president, sure, but what? What does that mean? He can't even speak without someone turning his camera off. Let me tell you where we're at right now, and then I'll show you the video of this. So we saw a while ago, Democrats are asking Biden to relinquish sole power over nuclear launch. Do you know how scary this is? So Joe Biden is essentially, someone's telling him what to do. They're taking his camera away. They're not letting him speak. Now they're saying, give us the launch codes. This is a scary day for America, my friends. The day when the president is so weak and pathetic that it's possible they could hand over the nuclear launch powers to someone else. To who? Says who? Now, it's not like these aren't, random people doing this. These are Democrats, but still, there's a reason why the president has the sole power to launch nukes. Mutually assured destruction is what everyone is hoping keeps us safe from nuclear annihilation. That if China or India or any of these countries with nukes launches them, then any other country slams the button and fires back. So nobody wants to be the one to do it. Effectively, a global Mexican standoff, keeping everybody locked down. But with Joe Biden being not all with it, would he actually be able to launch the nukes, to actually do anything like that? I don't want the nukes to get launched, mind you. But I understand the reason why the chief executive, the commander in chief has the sole ability to do this. Maybe the Democrats are right, though. Joe Biden should not be the only one with the powers to launch a nuke because he just ain't with it. Now we have something actually like, by the way. Bipartisan senators introduced bill to strip Biden of war powers. Senators Tim Kaine and Todd Young are looking to ditch the 2-decade-old authorization of use of military force, and they've got support on both sides of the aisle. Okay, that I kind of like. They want to get rid of the 1992 and 2002 AUMF. I think 2003, which means we ain't going to have those. We should not have troops in the Middle East. We won't have the authorization to do it. The bigger picture here, Joe Biden giving this talk. I want to play this video for you. Just listen to this.
Thank you. And I'm happy to take questions if that's what I'm supposed to do, Nance, whatever you want me to do.
And that's it. The camera just turns off. Thank you for joining. President Biden participates in a virtual event with the House Democratic Caucus. That's it. Let me play it again.
And I'm happy to take questions if that's what I'm supposed to do, Nance, whatever you want me to do.
No one says no. No one says, no, we're not going to do that today. It's just off. In response to the various tweets about Joe Biden's camera being turned off, tons of people on Twitter are saying, I don't believe this is real. I didn't believe it was real either. I still don't believe it's real. So I put this disclaimer. Maybe I'm being punked. Maybe it's all a big scam, but it's not. Joe Biden's live feed is cut off at the end of virtual meeting of House Democrats after he says he's happy to take questions as he faces mounting pressure to hold his first full press conference after 43 days in office. Joe Biden has not had a State of the Union address. This has not happened by this time since 1977. Okay. For my lifetime, it's never happened. For your lifetime, presumably, it's never happened. For those that are in their 50s, I suppose, you're like, oh, yeah, I remember Carter. Carter didn't give his first joint address to the joint session of Congress until April 18th, I believe. The Reagan, the Carter Library says, I think it's the Carter Library, House.gov says it was April 20th. Now, a lot of people have said there were no State of the Union addresses in many years. We went back. Jack and I, we looked through all of the dates. And while they're not always called a State of the Union, they're up on, by this point, by March 4th, the only time this hasn't, the last time this happened was Jimmy Carter. That means Donald Trump in his first year in February, I think it was February 28th, 2017, gave a statement to the joint session of Congress. And so maybe not a State of the Union, but that's an address to the joint sessions. We saw that with Obama, with Bush, with Clinton, with Bush Sr., with Reagan, with and then Carter, I believe. But Carter is where it stopped. So not unprecedented, just out of the ordinary for my lifetime. We have not seen Joe Biden speak. And some people are saying, well, it's because he can't. The left instinctively said it's because Donald Trump tried to stage an insurrection and it disrupted everything. And it's like, whatever, man. Maybe, it's fair to say maybe there's security concerns. Today, they're saying that it's March 4th. They're worried a militia will come to D.C. and it's just not going to happen. That's so dumb. You know what? I shouldn't speak because I was wrong about what was going to happen on the 6th. I said it was going to be a rally. Nothing was going to happen. And that was it. So maybe today something does happen. I just really, really doubt it. They say Biden is yet to hold a press conference in the 6 weeks since taking office. Obama held one 20 days after he was inaugurated and Trump after 27. On Wednesday, he said he was open to taking questions from House Democrats. As soon as he said he was ready for a Q&A, the White House feed was cut. Kayleigh McEnany, Trump's press secretary, asked, "Where's Joe?" Jen Psaki said, "We look forward to holding a full formal press conference." I think the real issue is obvious. Joe Biden ain't all with it. The Democrats want to take away his ability to launch nukes, solely his sole ability to do it, because I think they're worried that with a feeble, old, mentally declining man, America is at very serious risk. Think about this. They hated Trump so much, they were willing to put a puppet candidate, a fake candidate into the office. Joe Biden does not have the capacity to be president of the United States. And you can argue Trump is bombastic and erratic and crazy and all that, whatever, but at least the man was functional. Trump's spry, as I often say. Joe Biden, he ain't all with it. I want to show you this. USA Today says the claim: dozens of House Democrats are calling on President Joe Biden to relinquish his sole control over launching a nuclear attack. They say people are pointing to a letter that a group of Democrats in the House of Representatives sent the president this week to question whether members of Biden's own party trust him with the power over U.S. nuclear codes. This was first reported by Politico and signed by more than 30 House Democrats, urges Biden to consider alternatives to vesting one person with the authority to launch a nuclear attack. They'll probably give that power to Kamala Harris, I'd imagine. Fox News host Sean Hannity teased a segment about the letter, asking in a tweet, do the Democrats trust Biden? Clearly not. BizPac Review, which bills itself as a political news website. Yeah, okay. They're always trying to smear everybody. Unfiltered by liberal bias, provides... Okay. The senior managing editor of BizPac Review said in an email that the outlet stands behind its story and that I am sure you will find the facts of our story 100% accurate. President Biden's mental state has been a prominent and open discussion for the last few years. We have made no medical claims, nor have we linked the letter in the story to any specific claims, she said. The letter from Democrats requested 31 signatories, raising concerns about a system that concentrates the power to launch a nuclear attack with one individual and to offer alternatives. It's very obvious, in my opinion, Joe Biden is not building confidence among his own party. USA Today says Biden's mental state. BizPac Review connected Democrats sending the letter to Biden's mental state, saying that it came as concerns increased about the president's mental status. Its headline reads, House Dems urge Biden to give up sole control of nuclear codes as mental status concerns brew. That's true. The House Democrats did urge him to give up control, and we are in a period where people are concerned about Joe Biden's mental status. They may not be Democrats who are concerned, but the concerns are there. You may not like the context by which BizPac Review is framing things, and we can talk about framing, but it's not false. They say, USA Today says it's just missing context. Kirk disputed the report linked the two, though saying that the writer segued into several paragraphs describing, again, how outside observers continue to show concern over the president's mental status. They did the exact same thing with Donald Trump, and you expect me to be angry that a conservative site is doing this? Please. The reporter speculated that the letter could be linked to a decline in mental acuity, she wrote in an email to USA Today. The post on the website pointed to observations from Hannity and Grant Stinchfield, a host of the conservative outlet Newsmax. The president's mental state was a topic of discussion in mostly conservative media circles for months ahead of the 2020 elections, while left-leaning outlets mostly avoided the subject, according to the Post. That's a fact. Trump supporters claim during the campaign that Biden was suffering from dementia, but fact checks debunked those claims. Remember when they kept claiming Trump was suffering from dementia? Fact checks can't debunk someone's opinion. This is what I love about the media. Someone can say, in my opinion, non-medical expert, that guy yelling Trunanana Shabbat pressure and Batakath care shows signs of a decline in mental ability. How many people have gone up on stage and yelled Trunanana Shabbat pressure and Batakath care? And people say, oh, but he has a stutter. He has a speech impediment. Shut up. Come on. That's ridiculous. Joe Biden is in dozens of videos, hundreds of videos, hours upon hours of footage going back 47 plus years with his time in office. And you're going to try and claim now all of a sudden it's just he's got a speech impediment. He didn't have a speech impediment when he was going up and screaming at Clarence Thomas. All right. Spare me your psychotic lies. Now, we can say, fine. We can say he's a speech impediment. Sure, fine. That doesn't explain his camera feed getting cut off. It doesn't explain why all of this stuff around Joe Biden, like Kamala Harris, for instance, taking phone calls on his behalf with foreign leaders. It doesn't explain those things. I guess theoretically you can say he can't talk with foreign leaders because of his speech impediment, because he might say Trunanana Shabbat pressure. Sure, fine. So there's something I should say, our president is not capable of doing the job for reasons determined by the president. Don't look at me. It's the president, the one's not doing the phone calls. They go on to say, the National Institute of Aging notes that a medical assessment for dementia includes medical history, physical exam, and neurological tests, along with brain scans and other tests. But no such information about those tests of Biden exists in the public record, which does not change the fact that people who want to say Trump is mentally ill have the right to express their opinions, and those who say the same about Biden have the right to do the same. The president has also been public about a lifelong struggle with a stutter that sometimes affects his speech patterns. I love it. Didn't exist when he was, in the VP debates. Didn't exist in his time as vice president or in the Senate. Sure. Democrats who signed the letter also made no mention of Biden's mental state. Yes, but we're allowed to have opinions. They say our rating is missing context. I don't care about all that. Listen, they want to take away his sole authority. Kamala Harris is answering the phones for him, and now they want to take away his war powers. Bipartisan senators introduced bill to strip Biden of war powers. I'm not all that mad about it. I got to be honest. But who gets the war powers? Congress? It's the way it's supposed to be. I don't like the idea the president can snap his fingers and bomb Syria. The president has the ability to launch nukes. The president has the ability to act essentially unilaterally in an emergency to defend this country. I don't see how bombing Syria does that. Oh, they argue, but they were firing rockets at our bases. Dude, you can't go on someone else. You can't go to let's say there's somebody who hates your guts. So you you basically go to their neighbor's house, kick the door in, tell them, I'm going to be setting up, in front in your lawn. And then when the guy next door is like, get out of here, you're harassing my guests, you say, he's attacking me. It's like, dude, the United States invades Iraq and Afghanistan, these countries, and the people there are attacking us. I'm not a fan of any of it. We should not have gone in the first place. We were lied to by the media in order to drum up support for this incursion into the Middle East so they can set up military bases surrounding Iran, and then they could try and figure out how to go in and crush Iran. It has something to do with the petrodollar, I can only imagine. The problem is Iran is a very large and powerful nation. It is mountainous. It is not the same as Iraq or Afghanistan. So the idea was, guess what? Iraq, Afghanistan. Well, from your perspective, the other way around. Guess what's in the middle? Iran. We set up a pincer attack. We surrounded them on both sides by invading these two countries. It was always about Iran. John Bolton said a year ago, he's like, this time next year, we'll be celebrating in Tehran. Shut your mouth, you warmonger. That's what it's all about. Taking away the war powers from Biden. I don't know, man. I think it's kind of a good thing. But besides that point, it's indicative of a declining mental ability in Joe Biden, and he has handlers. Think about how scary that is for this country, that for the first time in a long time, maybe not, maybe only Trump, but we can now see that the president is not the leader of this country. I'll make a few points. Listen, Texas reopened. Texas said we're open for business 100%. And Joe Biden called them Neanderthals. He said it was Neanderthal thinking. Okay, well, that's offensive. How dare you, good sir. Florida's been open. Red states are reopening. And prominent liberals are screeching, outraged that Texas would do this. Joe Biden is not the leader of these United States. He is the leader of blue states because red states aren't listening to him. And he has no ability to control what the red states do. Now, you could say similarly to Trump, but even with COVID, the blue states were still praising Trump when Trump was providing aid. But we can say this, it's been that way for a long time. I'm not going to single Biden out on this one. Trump was a president for red states, not necessarily blue states. Obama was a president more so for blue states than red states, and it's been getting worse. Now we're at a point where Joe Biden says we're not going to see normal until this time next year. Texas said, no, we're normal. You don't lead us. Your opinions are meaningless, and there's nothing you can do about it. Joe Biden, whether it's hard authority, like the ability to send in federal troops, police or whatever, or just charisma and confidence, he does not have it. He doesn't have, look, theoretically, he could send in National Guard to Texas or Florida, or any one of these states, but it just wouldn't work because the federal government doesn't have the capacity to lock down every red state and force them to do anything. There can be, spot enforcement here and there, but for the most part, they just do not have the capability. What do you think would happen if National Guard went into Texas, tried to shut down businesses? It wouldn't work. What the president needs is confidence from a large portion of this country. It doesn't have to be the majority. It actually has to be, it has to be more than the majority. It can't be a simple majority. So what happens when you have a president who can't control? The Democrats are trying to take, it was 2002. They're trying to repeal the 1991 and 2002 AUMFs to end the so-called forever wars. I like it, but it also bodes poorly for us, I suppose. The president does not represent many states in this country. People in Republican states have been talking about secession. Prominent political figures, pundits, and commentators have been mentioning peaceful divorce. And Joe Biden could be our James Buchanan. I think that was the guy, right? They say that, he was the president leading up the Civil War. He was feckless. He was a terrible leader, and he made everything worse. And maybe that's it. And then we get our Republican resurgence. Maybe it's Donald Trump again, or maybe DeSantis. And then maybe we see an actual civil war. Listen, I love how a lot of people are like, you're claiming civil war. Listen, stop imagining war movies. I'm not talking about people in uniform marching towards each other. I'm talking about the fact that NBC News just put out an article a few days ago saying Republican talk of secession is legitimate and we must pay attention to it. I didn't make that article up. I did not tell Alan West to endorse a secession bill. I did not tell John Podesta of the Democratic Party to advise the Western states to secede from the Union in the event Trump wins. I didn't make any of that up. So let me tell you something. What do you think happens if Donald Trump wins again in 2024 after a weak and pathetic president who is stripped of his powers, is mocked, and has no ability to even speak to this country? Do you think the blue states, who were already advised by Podesta to secede, are going to be like, well, you know, Trump won, so we're fine with it? Or do you think in 2024, Donald Trump is running, leading the pack, and he gets the biggest swing from Republican votes and somehow manages to pull off this victory after 4 years of a pathetic Biden administration with a lack of confidence, with mass lockdowns? Trump steps in and says, I will end these lockdowns. I will restore your economy. And then he wins. And he wins in huge numbers. I mean, hypothetically, what do you think these blue states are going to do? After everything we saw the first run, you think they're just going to be like, okay. Or do you think they're going to be like, the Republicans were right, secession? And then you get your peaceful divorce. Right now, people in blue states are like, Texas can't leave the union. That's not right. What happens when all these red states have the sentiment of saying, yeah, maybe we should? And then all these blue states are like, we want to leave now, too, because Trump is president. What happens when everyone agrees? Or for the most part, the plurality does. This is the danger of having Joe Biden as president. More so, it's all just, to me, dominoes falling over. I think it's hilarious. I've been talking about civil war for a long time, and these progressives are like, Tim Pool's so dumb for talking about civil war, blah, blah, blah. And then they're screaming that Trump tried to stage an insurrection. So which is it? Was I right or was I fear-mongering? Did Donald Trump try to stage an insurrection to overthrow the government? So they say. Or was I fear-mongering? Which one is it? You can't say both. Either I was right or I was wrong. And Trump supporters, no, the reality is, in any circumstance, Trump supporters breached the Capitol building. Now, you can say that Trump incited it or whatever. I don't care. I don't think he did. I think that's ridiculous. I think people are just angry. But do you think this anger and sentiment just disappears? It doesn't. I do not want this to happen. That's the other thing that really annoys me. They're like, by talking about it, Tim, you're encouraging it. Oh, I wrote the article for NBC News and the New York Book Review and the Atlantic and New York Mag. Shut up. Look at Joe Biden. They are stripping him of his powers. They don't even trust him. They're cutting his microphone off. Do you think the American people feel that is confidence building? They banned Dr. Seuss. They ceased publication of Dr. Seuss books. For the most part, I don't care all that much. Regular people in this country are being forced to wake up to something they don't want to be involved in. And they are going to say, we want Christmas time. We want presents. We want to go to the mall. We want to drink our frappuccinos and eat our Sbarro or whatever. They don't want your weird woke critical garbage. They don't. Most people don't want to be involved. I saw a post from the Barracks. For those that aren't, it's BERRICS. It's one of the most prominent skateboarding media organizations in the world. And they asked, how do you feel about cancel culture? And of course, it was fairly split, but a lot of people were just skateboarders, like not political people saying, I'm scared to say my opinion. I thought that was fascinating. When skateboarders are bringing this up, some of the most apolitical people in the world, they don't want to be involved, are now being forced into this. I tell you this, they're going to side with freedom, and that is not the left. So what happens in 2024? I think it's possible if Trump runs, he wins. You know what's going to benefit Trump this time around? He has no Twitter. He has no Twitter, and he won't be able to say awful things. Now, you could argue that he won't be able to defend himself either, but I don't think that matters. Trust in the media is at an all-time low, and it's only going to get worse. People are going to look to Trump and say, save us. Because the lockdowns, because the economy. But we'll see. 4 years is a long time. Maybe by this time, in 3.5 years, everything's actually great. And whoever is actually in charge of the actual president, not Joe Biden, I mean that figuratively, not literally. Joe Biden's the president. I know this. Whoever is actually telling Joe what he should or shouldn't be doing and advising him, maybe they've done a great job and Joe Biden's just sleeping. Some people don't think that Joe Biden will be able to finish this term. It's going to get bad because it already is bad. And I don't know what to expect. But it's insane to me that people are looking at Texas, Florida, Wyoming, Louisiana, where you have some Republicans saying secede. Texas introduced a bill to allow a vote on secession. And they're like, no, it can never happen. It can never happen. It's like every day we get closer to it actually happening. So what do you think is going on? For me, I see dominoes falling over. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.